The Square Ball Podcast.
Well, welcome to the show. This is brought to you in association with Levi Solicitors, our favourite firm of solicitors and indeed the world. levisolicitors.co.uk/the Square Ball for your 10% discount on your legal fees.
All of the legal fees.
Yeah.
From them. Levi Solicitors. World's Probate Conveyancing.
Thank you. Player of the Year. Shall we pick one then? Shall we crown one and explain our
this trophy.
Our methodology? Terry McCann, thank you very much for 3D printing as the Player of the Year trophy.
Solid platinum.
Yep.
I believe.
As you can tell, Michael's struggling under the weight of it there. There you go.
Acting.
It was all to play for going into the playoff final. So the reason, not the reason why we're doing this, but the reason how we're doing this is that we've been assembling our scores out of 10 right across the season. Everybody who's a subscriber, one of our TSB Plus members, thousands of them sending in scores every game out of 10. Far more emotional and less rational, I think, at times than maybe you get in the newspapers or whatever. But who are those guys? We know print's dead, isn't it?
Well, whoever does player ratings, people always hate it.
I mean, it does get a bit keep with the TSB members sometimes, which I think is fair.
I noticed for the playoff final, I think someone had given them all 0, more or less, because they just
so sad.
Were unhappy with the whole day. So they just like, fuck all of them.
Yeah, you should do everything through the prism of heightened emotions.
Yeah.
It's always a successful way to navigate life. Anyway, so to wrap up those scores, then the final out of 10s for the final game of the 23-24 season, your wooden spoon holder was Joel Peru with a fraction over 3.3 out of 10.
That is bad. That is bad. That's lower than the referee.
The dickhead referee got 3.48. Farker scored low there. Somerville, Nonto.
I even feel like the referee probably suffered from the defeat. I feel like if we'd have won that game, he'd have probably got 6.
Was he that bad? I've banished kind of everything from that game.
I don't recall him doing anything wrong, particularly.
No, I mean, it's quite telling that basically all our best players are our lowest scoring ones as well.
People, it's a punishment vote, isn't it? Yeah. So, Nonto, Ampadu, Anthony, Ruta, Kamara, Roberts, Ilya Gruev. Then to go north of 5, we've got Junior Firpo, Joe
Did you mention Somerville?
Yep.
You did?
When I said his name before,
okay, good.
That's when I mentioned him.
Just wasn't listening.
Yeah. So Ilya Gruev, they were all under 5. Junior Firpo, 5.23, rode on a bit higher than that. Melier, Matteo Joseph, Archie Gray scoring just shy of 6. Then Dan James, the only one to come out with what you'd determined to be a respectable score, 7.7 out of 10 for the little scum bastard.
Hit the bar and bled.
Yeah.
That's basically it, isn't it? That's what you need to do.
Nearly said he had a lovely gash, but I probably shouldn't describe it like that.
Have we seen his head more recently? Because
he's wearing a bandage, isn't he?
Yeah, he scored a really good goal in Wales training, but he had this weird orange bandage around his head.
It did look bad.
It was really bad.
I have to say, coming out of Wembley, it looked like like a car crash or something. It was huge.
Yeah.
I've still not actually seen back what happened. I think they omitted it from the highlights.
It was a basic clash of heads, I think, wasn't it?
Is that all it was?
Yeah. Is that all it was? Minimising it. Yeah. So we fed all those into the supercomputer. Can you make a noise like a supercomputer, Michael?
That's more like a dial-up modem, isn't it?
Right, so you've done that. So we need to crown a player of the year. Do we want to do some sort of reverse order? Maybe just touch on a few of the candidates here. We are going to, by the way, we're going to, on the members show, starting next week, we're going to score everyone, aren't we, on an arbitrary scale? So last year, because it was rubbish and we went down, we did the Bristol Stool scale for the players. So we're going to decide on a methodology this week, and then we'll start to score everybody in the squad over the next sort of few weeks as we head in towards the Euros. But player of the year, Cody Drame didn't manage to turn it around from his one appearance and 2.13 out of 10 at the bottom.
It's difficult to see how anyone's ever going to get lower than that, because he was on the pitch for half an hour and then was taken off again after being at fault for a couple of goals.
On and off, wasn't he?
It's pretty spectacular. I think maybe, trying to think historically who else could have possibly been lower, like Rahubka.
Rahubka, yeah.
But he did, I feel like in some of those games he might have got like 4 or 5 out of 10, because he was only vaguely at fault for like 1 goal.
I know every week.
Yeah, but sometimes we won, so people might be like, well.
Yeah, if it was just that Blackpool game, he'd have beaten Drama.
Yeah, he would. But yeah, as a season average, I know it's only 1 game, but I think 2.13 is it's almost prizeworthy in itself.
Izzy Brown, maybe?
People had sympathy for Izzy Brown, though.
I remember his debut at QPR when he came on Ball hit him in the face, and then he nearly got sent off. Yeah,
that was it. Yeah.
Is Cody Dramé on his way to Dortmund, presumably, this summer?
I think so.
Newcastle, in it,
Yeah, both definitely in for him.
Yes, so he's the one at the bottom here. The referee, over the course of the season, the dickhead referee averaged just over 3 out of 10. Very generous, 3.08. Then we're into the rest of the players who all got over 4.
And
Carl Darlow's...
Pretty much everyone at the bottom, other than Darlow.
Carl Darlow's 3 appearances just netted him over 4 average.
Yeah.
You're talking Yelder, JB...
Kind of got rid of all the others down here, haven't we?
Yeah, Gelhardt, Perkins, Pervader, Jed Spence. Pat's not come out great, has he, there?
No. He had a lot of bad games before he started having a bit of a run in the team.
He was just always coming off the bench and not doing anything, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then, the people coming off the bench always suffered with marks because everybody seemed to mark them relatively low. But even still, like the season average scores there, so they range from 5.75 for Pat, who's sort of your first big kind of full-time player that's made that list, all the way up to the winner, who is over 7.05. But it's the only one that's properly breached 7 in any meaningful sense, isn't it? The winner.
What do you mean in any meaningful sense?
All right, then. So Chris Clarkson was carrying an average of 7 out of 10.
What more can he do?
That's true. Didn't do anything wrong in the playoff final, did he, as you said? But so from bottom to top, Pat there, 5.75. Charlie Cresswell, Sam Greenwood with his 2 appearances. Jaden Anthony, over 30 games. This has been factored from, but 5.8. Feels a little bit unfair because Jaden Anthony, I don't think has done anything wrong at all this season.
No, you can see the impact of being a sub on here because, like Matteo Joseph, 5.92, but I think actually people have been quite pleased with him this year from the bits they've seen. It's just that, he comes on for 5 minutes in a game and what are you going to do? So people give him 5.
Yeah. And just over that, then you're into the 6 out of 10s. Liam Cooper, Jamie Shack, Junior Firpo, scoring a respectable 6.19 out of 10. Same as Wilf Nonto.
Can you actually remember the games Chris Clarkson played in?
Nah.
I was trying to think this earlier.
I've just looked it up because I couldn't remember either.
I'm guessing it was when Melier was banned.
Yeah.
But I can't remember anything about those games.
Well, with Chris Clarkson in the team, 2 games, scored 6, conceded none.
Right. What does that tell you?
What does that tell you?
What does it tell you?
It was Birmingham 3, Leeds 0. Leeds 3, Birmingham 0. And Peterborough 0, Leeds 3 were the 2 games.
Very good. Very good.
What more can you do?
Yeah.
And also in that Peterborough game, weird things happened. Ethan Ampadu never scores, scored twice. Pat Bamford scored the best goal of his career in it. He's an inspirational presence.
Yeah. So your scores from Liam Cooper upwards are between 6 and 7 until you get to our winner, which is just a fraction over 7. So it's Cooper, Shackleton, Junior Firpo, Wilf Nonto, Connor Roberts, Ilan Melier, Ilya Gruev, 6.4. Then you're up to Sam Byram, Glenn Kamara, Jorginho Ruter with 6.66 average out of 10. We're recording this on the 6th of June. Mm-hmm. Tony Yeboah's birthday, famously, 6666. That's what Georgie's got.
Do you want me to get my gematria?
Nope.
We saw, were you there when Matt Letizia walked past the pub at Wembley?
No.
Queuing up to get in and Matt Letizia walked straight past. Well, he appeared to. Was it a hologram?
I mean, was it a coincidence?
Makes you think, doesn't it?
Doesn't make you think.
Did he not acknowledge you as his fellow brethren?
No, well, I didn't want to get into it. I think people, I could have shouted something about it, but he probably gets a lot of it.
Jorginho Ruter, 666. Farker then just slightly over that with 6.68 out of 10. Is that a fair reflection of Farker's season, do you think?
It's maybe a bit harsh. Is it? Didn't end well, did it?
We won a tremendous amount of games, but no, it didn't end well in the end.
Did he contribute more?
All the people around him generally had good seasons.
Yeah.
So it sort of probably does average out fairly, I think.
Strauch then with 6.82. Luis Sinisterra scored unnaturally high because did quite well at the start of the season, particularly like scoring in the winner in the Ipswich away game, but then promptly up sticks and went. So 3 games and a 6.83 average. Crescencio Somerville, Championship Player of the Season, 6.87 average out of 10. Dan James just a fraction higher, 6.9. Archie Gray, 6.93. And your top 3 then. Do you want to do some sort of dramatic, like X Factor style reveal, or should I just say it?
I think people have probably worked it out.
Right.
He's been top of player of the year for about 10 weeks.
Right, yeah. So your top 3, Ethan Ampadu with 6.95 average out of 10. Chris Clarkson with his 2 appearances and 7 out of 10 bang on the nose. And Joe Rodon, speaking of bang on the nose, 7.05 out of 10 is your player of the season. Look at that.
Well deserved, Joe. There you go. You have to come back to Leeds to collect it, though. if you don't sign for us, it's going to Chris Clarkson. So unless we sell him as well, I suppose.
I reckon Sam might come in and collect it. Get him on the podcast.
That is true.
100%. He's been tweeting out sort of very, I don't know, obtuse references to Rodon being at Leeds. Like it was a big picture of Rodon in a Leeds kit, like a day or two back. Do we read anything into it other than just liked putting out a fancy picture?
The problem is when you look at his general social media output, it's erratic. It's what I would say.
There was a picture of Dan James as an angel, followed the Joe Rodon illustration.
Maybe Dan James has died.
Hope not.
You said he had a bandage on his head in training.
Was it keeping his brains in?
Well, sometimes for continuity purposes, if you've got a stuntman or whatever, it's easier to get people to wear a hat or something, isn't it?
Right.
Maybe it's a stunt Dan James.
Is it a crisis actor?
It's potential.
Right, that's interesting.
Well, and Rob was saying on the Daily Email how Jed Spencer's been allegedly putting a mask on and playing in charity games or something.
I watched that because it was a bunch of dreadful YouTubers, and my son, being 12, nearly 13, was very invested in this. Bunch of American YouTubers against a bunch of British YouTubers. Selhurst Park, lots of screaming, some absolutely abysmal play, some couple of worldy goals, but it finished 6 goals apiece. They were going to do a penalty shootout, but there was a pitch invasion, which meant that they couldn't get back out on the pitch, and that was it.
Who's invading the pitch?
The people that were there, the spectators.
But you don't like. Who do you support?
A YouTuber.
Oh,
It was just an excuse to get on the pitch, wasn't it? And then all the YouTubers got annoyed because I think they wanted to do the penalty shootout. Like, he spoiled his fun now.
But on the American team was a guy who was the anonymous player who had dreadlocks but had a mask on as well, so you didn't quite know who it was. And a lot of people saying it was Jed Spence.
Well, his sister was there as well, and the player scored 2 goals and also an own goal. And yeah, there is a clip doing the rounds of him just booting the ball into the stands after trying to do a trick. And I thought, does look a bit like Jed Spence.
Oh dear me, an interesting.
Doesn't Jed Spence feel like a whole other season ago?
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like this season whatsoever.
No.
It's been long. It's been long. But Joe Rodon, I think it's come out about right. I know Chris Clarkson is a bit of an error in the formatting of this, but I feel like Rodon, Ampadu, Gray is a fairly solid and well-deserved top 3.
It goes to show you the basis on which kind of the success, if you're going to merit success, where it came from. The strength of the team came from the defensive solidity, I suppose, didn't it?
Yeah, and Ampadu, arguably, for just the sheer amount of minutes he's played, because I felt like he's not had a rest at all.
It could have been either of them, couldn't it? It could have been.
Yeah, there's not much to go between them. I think Ampadu's played a couple of positions as well, which maybe should gain him a little bit of extra, just because it's more difficult to have to move about. But Rodon, I think, for his application across the season as a loanee as well, because sometimes loanees, Jed Spence, for example, you get the impression they're not that arsed. Whereas from the moment he came in, Rodon, he just felt like he was. I feel like he's only got one setting really, is Rodon, and it's been to our benefit.
Yeah, and you get the sense that he's playing for his career, don't you, as well?
Yeah, he's just been a lot of fun to watch as well for a centre half. Like he's just permanently scowling or sticking his tongue out or limping or holding his head. Like you say, he's only got one setting. It's kind of, well, I nearly used a Jesse Marsh phrase there of all in. But yeah, he's a proper centre-back that we like at Leeds. And I would like him to stay.
Yeah.
Please stay. Please come back. Be ours. All this filthy taurine-soaked money that we've got now from Red Bull, just go and buy him. Buy 2 of them.
I bet Sam Rodon likes a Red Bull.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Just 5 or 6 a day, nothing silly.
and then when he's in the bar,
big cans as well.
Yeah, and then when he's in the bar as well, it's Jaeger bombs. Yeah, it's vodka Red Bull, all that kind of thing. And then he's obviously demanding that you stay and you get the shots, and you really regret it in the morning. So yeah, congratulations to Joe Rodon. Please come back. Please stay.
Do come back.
Yeah, it was nice. I had a nice time. So I'd like to do that again, please. With all that in mind, then, should we pick a hero and villain of the season? The architects of our positives and negatives over the course of the last 12 months.
I don't know who to go for.
Let's start. Should we start with a villain of the season and then finish by crowning a hero of the season? So we finish on a high.
Now, did Willie Nonto score enough goals in the end?
I mean, well, of that time, let's look at that time then and examine how all that came about. We've got him, Sinistera,
Adams,
done dirty by a bunch of rats who all wanted to go.
I mean, in some ways,
the shite bags as a whole would work. It's a catch-all.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, Adams was a focal point of it, as was Sinistera. But ultimately, we got money for them, and they've left, and they're not our problem anymore. Whereas Rasmus, Brendan, Rocker, all these people are potentially coming back, and I do have a slight sense of like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I feel like if you were going to perhaps try and throw a blanket over all of them, is this Victor Orta's doing? The loan clauses, the signings that weren't good enough, and then the loan clauses.
I was thinking the other day, do you remember when we gave Diego Llorente a new contract? Has he played for us since?
No.
Barely.
No.
It's mental, isn't it? He'd be out of contract now and he wouldn't be our problem.
Yeah, we're protecting his value, weren't we?
Which has gone really well.
Yeah, apparently that deal was done way before it was announced.
Yeah.
And then they held off on it, and then he just got worse and worse, and then they were like, oh, fuck, we better announce it anyway.
When the Queen died, and they were like, oh, shit, we can't announce it now.
Barry has bad news. Right. Good day to put out a Diego Llorente new contract. Wait for some national mourning. Yeah, so he's coming back, possibly.
Oh, there's talk of Roma wanting to retain him. I did see that story doing the rounds, and I'm willing to believe it.
He has played quite a lot of games.
Because it's what I want to happen.
Yeah. I don't think they're keeping Rasmus, are they?
No. So being lumbered with all those problems, it felt like the undoing of the season. And I know people will point to the end and say the playoff final wasn't good enough. The football had shortcomings or whatever, the style of football. But really, had we not had that initial 4 to 6 week wobble at the start because of all the turmoil, we probably would have got up automatically.
Probably. Yeah, I feel like it would have certainly given us a solid foundation, whereas actually by the time we beat Leicester, we were still miles and miles behind him. And I know we did catch up. Well, we beat Leicester twice. On both occasions, it felt like we were still miles back because of...
We never had the wriggle room, did we?
What had gone on before. Yeah, like Ipswich had a bad spell as well towards the end of the season.
They were winless in 9 games, weren't they?
Yeah, which if we have points on the board, we can have a wobble too, just as they did. But they clocked them up early on, didn't they? And it was enough to see them through. And it was a form of cheating, if you ask me.
And also our wobble at the end, our poor form at the end, I do think they were kind of legitimate. As disappointing as it was, I do think they were kind of legitimate reasons for that, whether it would be injuries, just the fact it's a young team and they don't really know what they're doing here. Whereas the shite bags were just shit dickheads who got us relegated and fucked off.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like as well, the people who were almost the people to receive it should be the ones who were first out the door, who clearly had stuff lined up. Like, it felt like...
Rocker was talking about, there was stories linking Rocker to Real Betis like months before the end of last season. And even now, there's still there's been a story every week about Rocker joining Real Betis. And it's like, he plays for you. Just shut up and play for Real Betis.
Yeah, and it felt like Aronson signed within about 10 minutes of being relegated as well. He was like, yeah, I'm also...
It was the day after we got relegated. There was the story about his release clause, wasn't there?
Yeah. So maybe those lot...
So do you want to give it to...
As a whole? That's Harrison as well, isn't it? We haven't even mentioned him.
The dickheads, the loan clauses, and the person who gave them the loan clauses.
Fine. How did Victor Orta finish the season? They sacked the manager, didn't they?
They were protesting against him, weren't they?
Yeah. That Watford guy, they got rid of him. They'll get another Watford guy. Didn't they get Kike Sanchez Flores for a bit after they think they've on 3 managers this season?
Doesn't it feel, I know that the season didn't end how we wanted, but doesn't it feel like we've become a far more grown-up club since Victor Orta went?
Well, yeah.
I'm not necessarily putting that just on his shoulders because it was ultimately Radrazani's club, but, you know.
He did hire that guy he met at a barbecue for Sevilla, didn't he?
Yes.
And
yes, that's the guy. That's the guy I was thinking of, yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean, though. Not having to have a screaming presence in the West Stand has probably been quite welcome.
Yeah, like the 49ers seem like quite serious people, and I don't mean serious as in a boring sense. I mean like they will do the job in a serious manner. Approach it seriously.
I want our owners to be boring. I think that's been quite nice this season, actually. Whereas in the past, you just get fed up of seeing them do stupid bollocks all the time. Yeah,
because I feel like given the way the season ended, the Norwich semi-final would have been Radrazani on Twitter having a little boast about something, Victor Orta yelling at someone in the West Stand because we've turned it around and we've won. And there's just not been any of that, which is... The thing is, it's easier for the owners to do as well. You just make life difficult for yourself by making yourself the focus of it, don't you, in the way that Victor Orta did.
Yeah, so. But to be fair, football's full of people who do that. You know, look at what some of the idiots at Birmingham have done. for example, just putting themselves in the limelight. And I think you genuinely good operators will not do that. They won't want to. Like you've seen Morata step into the limelight in the wake of the playoff final defeat because somebody has to own it. Somebody has to take responsibility for it. Like when we went down, I'm fairly sure Radrizzani, they put the statement on the website, didn't they, at that point? But he was all but absent at that point.
Yeah, he was.
In the process of trying to sell up. But somebody has to own it. Somebody has to take responsibility for it. And actually, nobody did until Kinnear came in here and said, we messed up. So there was kind of that whole...
There was a weird vacuum at the end of last season, wasn't there, where everyone knew that they were on the way out. Alter had already gone. Radrizzani was going. So it was almost pointless to just yell at them because they weren't in the building anymore. And the 49ers, even though they'd kind of been there, they could also just point to the other people and go, oh, it wasn't us. It just kind of fell in no man's land, did a lot of the blame last season. And
to return back to what we were saying before, like, they didn't actually complete the transaction to buy us until September. Even though it was agreed in July and that notice was put out there it had been agreed, it took a long time to get it over the line, and that's what ultimately screwed the season, I think, wasn't it? That lack of stability early doors.
Whereas this coming season, it's all on you 49ers and Red Bull.
Yeah, very much so. So who are we giving the villain of the season to then, just to close that thought? Loan clauses, dickheads who had loan clauses?
Carl Darlow. He got arm nutmegged in a penalty shootout.
Arm megged.
Just the people Victor Orta bought.
Yeah.
I think he's a fair shout.
Yeah. And Victor himself. Sadly.
But, maybe it turns around. Maybe at this point next season, we're here saying Brendan Aronson, Player of the Year, 28 goal involvements in the Championship. And we're like, I can't believe Victor Orta put in that 30 million release clause and he's gone to Bayern Munich.
Oh, well. So, yeah.
Right. We'll worry about that in future, though.
Yeah, that is a future problem, isn't it? Not a right now problem. With all that in mind, then, hero of the season. For me, there's an easy candidate that stands out here.
Go on.
Archie Gray.
He was one of two that I was thinking of. But I think he has probably brought me the most joy. Just because whenever he does anything good, you go, it's Archie Gray.
Yeah.
I love it.
And that's one of the things that really made my heart sink when Morata spoke in the wake of the playoff final, that he wouldn't put to bed the idea that Archie Gray might leave. And I thought, I get it. I get it from an economics point of view. I get it from a profit and sustainability point of view. But that's not why I like football. I like football because I can feel a sense of paternal pride at seeing another member of the Gray family put on the Leeds shirt and evidently love every minute of it.
You made it sound with your paternal pride in Gray family like you're in the Gray family.
I'm not. I just want to say very clearly, I've had no involvement in that.
Your genetics, useless.
Yeah, I had no involvement in that. No, but that's like, you look at him, you're like, you do feel like a proud dad, don't you? Because you're so young, and there's all the historical legacy stuff of the Gray family, and it makes your heart feel full, doesn't it? It's the reason why you get into being a football fan. It's great. So he's the heart of it. He's carrying this team. He's the future heart of it. Hopefully, if he stays and they don't sell him. Yeah. So just that's the essence of it all, isn't it? And I feel like he probably embodies the best bits of this season. Rodon too, as well, actually.
I want to give an outside shout for Dan James, actually, because I've written him off in the past. And I think when the season started and he gave away that penalty at Birmingham, I was right on the brink of being like, oh, for fuck's sake, this guy again. I'm sick of seeing it. But actually, he's just played really well across the season. He never moans. He always tries. And I think there's a lot to be said for his attitude in these things. He came back to the club having been shoved out on loan when we completely fucked the end of a transfer window because we thought we were signing Gakpo and... Who was the other fucker?
Bamba Dieng.
Dieng, that was it.
About 6 players.
Yeah, we thought we were signing all these people, so we accidentally got rid of him. And he would have been well within his rights to be like, look, I just want out. Please let me go. I don't want to be here anymore. You don't want me. I don't want to be here. Let's just write the whole thing off as something that should have never happened. We should have never gone back to it after you tried to sign me and it went wrong the first time. But I just get the feeling he's a very, very solid member of the squad and seems like a nice guy and has also scored loads of goals this season. So, and it would have got more. He had that period out injured, didn't he, when Nonto came back into the team actually and did well, in fairness to him. But I feel like if Dan James had played a full season, he may well have been our top scorer.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I think it was after that Birmingham game I compared him to like the Rasmus Christensen of wingers because it just seemed like he couldn't do any of the basics. And actually, he's been class pretty much all season. Scored loads of good goals. That goal against Hull was amazing. seems like a good lad, like you say. I'm sort of hoping that his kind of bright playoff final appearance is almost like a bit of a Stuart Dallas moment for him, where he just comes in, he's in the team all the time next season, and he's just great all the way through.
Yeah, he should be a leading figure in it next year. Yeah, assuming he does stay as well.
But it's interesting looking at the Player of the Year scores that he finished above Somerville.
Yeah.
Somerville ended the season quite badly, didn't he, is the thing. And you almost wonder with Somerville if he's got a bit of an eye on getting out this summer.
Yeah.
Because I think of when you look at the squad, I think he's the most obvious to leave, probably, even more so than Gray, because, again, a bit like Gray, we can probably bank a decent profit on him as well in terms of not just actual cash, but a book profit, because we bought him for very little. He's more or less a youth player, isn't he, when we signed him, so we can show profit and sustainability-wise a big profit on it. He probably wants to play Premier League football, which he's entitled to do because he's had a really good season. I think he's probably shown he's good enough for it, certainly at points. But yeah, I don't know. It's been hard to get attached to him in some ways, hasn't it, Somerville?
Yeah. I think particularly because you've just seen those little bits of like rebellion, like when he just disappeared off for his birthday, things like that. Like you kind of there's a little bit of self-interest there, isn't there?
Yeah, like him taking the penalty off Pirro that time and stuff. There's just little bits like that just they leave a little doubt in your mind, don't they? Think, is he a dickhead? But then part of also when he's playing well, you think, is it all right that he's a dickhead?
Yeah, it's good that he's a dickhead. Yeah, completely.
Because he's got that sort of cockiness that means he does just come up with big goals and what have you. So it's probably unfair that he's not more in the conversation for this, but should have been more likeable.
I think Farke deserves a shout as well. I know people have kind of gone cold on him a little bit towards the end of the season, which I think is a bit unfair, to be honest. I think, he wasn't even appointed when we started pre-season. We had a shit show over summer, which none of it was his fault. And to be honest, every time I've heard him speak, I'm like, you're the most sensible man in the room. I like what you say. I kind of trust what you're doing. And, as disappointing as the season has ended, we've actually won loads of games, scored loads of goals, conceded very few, played a lot of good football. And all these players that we're praising and saying they've had a really good season, you look at what they've done for Leeds before, and it's been very, very little. And I think Farke's done a really good job getting that out of them. Like Somerville, as much as he's shown glimpses of his talent, he basically had 4 good weeks in the Premier League, like back to back, and then never really did anything either side. Georgie Rutter, we signed and nobody really knew what he was for or where he'd fit, and he's been loads of fun to watch. Archie Gray, thank God he was injured while Jesse Marsh was here, because now he's had a proper coach teaching him how to do it. And even players like Rodon and Ampadu seemingly like never really fit anywhere. Farke's got hold of him and they've looked class. And he's made Junior Firpo look like a left back, which is a miracle.
Almost. But yeah, I do think that over the course of this season, and is this something that football fans are guilty of just in general, the social media feed into it, of holding the club and Farke to an impossibly high standard when it comes to what they expect. And it was probably distorted a little bit by the starts that both Leicester and Ipswich made as well this last season, in that there was never any room to lose any games. But you just do. In the Championship, you do. You end up losing it. I mean, like 6 defeats is a hell of a season, isn't it? If you get something like that, but it's normally like between 6 and 10 for teams that go up.
The difficulty was the spacing of the defeats, wasn't it? Because they came in a little clump at the end when it was like this. Because it felt like for a while we were going to do it, I have to say. Because it was like, well, we just keep winning. And even when we weren't playing brilliantly,
just digging it out.
It was just ticking along, and it was like, oh, this is happening. I'm fairly sure this is good. This is happening. But we were just saying about TV series actually in the office, weren't we? So you do judge them a bit on the ends you can have enjoyed a series, but then it gets to the end and it's a bit lame, and you go, I reflect on the whole thing now, and I didn't like any of it.
Yeah, it's like a recency bias almost, isn't it?
Yeah. But I suppose you can draw a parallel between the first Bielsa season, which that ended and everyone was desperate to keep Bielsa. And I don't feel like there's quite the same desperation to keep Farke.
Yeah, but I feel
like if he left, a lot of people would kind of shrug a bit. And actually, I think we just need to fully back him and go again, which is clearly what the club are going to do. But the end of that Bielsa season was terrible. I know we did kind of, as this season, kind of pull it around in one leg of the playoffs. But we ended that season with the Wigan defeat and defeat of Brentford and defeat at already relegated Ipswich. There was no momentum to it whatsoever. But everyone finished that and went, yeah, well, let's just do it again. Yeah. It's been good as this season. I can't quite. I don't know if it's unfair on Farke.
I think,
or whether or not it was the expectation of coming down from the Premier League with players.
It's changed it. Yeah, no, I think it was it Graham Smith who wrote recently about Leeds being an emotional club. Why are Leeds such an emotional club? And it's true, we are. And I think the whole Bielsa era and the Bielsa promotion, there was kind of this really raw, high level of emotion attached to all of that because of the 15, 16 years of pressure. And then we went up and did it. Didn't really have that much of a nice time. Came back down again. And then suddenly you're in the division with all the best players alongside, a small handful of other clubs. But there is an expectation that comes with it that you should be in the hunt. And also it's taken away the 15, 16 years of angst along with it. And it's felt more transactional. And I think that's true of Farke. It's like the process of bringing him in is, well, he's done this before. He's got loads of points in this division. So we need him to just kind of go out there and repeat it. Whereas Bielsa was lightning in a bottle. We didn't know if it was going to work because he's this completely out of left field maverick genius who we knew he was a maverick genius, but we didn't necessarily know that much about his football as such, maybe. The
money changes it as well because you can come down and, you hear commentators say it every single week as well, say, Georgie Ruto, well, depending on who's reporting it, it's where between about 25 and 50 million pounds people seem to report he's worth. But you hear fans saying it all the time on other propaganda stuff as well, where people go, oh, well, what can you do? Leeds have got Dan James, who they paid 35 million quid for, and Rutter, who they paid 70 million pounds for. And
I mean, most Championship clubs have a good player, don't they, who then will leave them at the end of the season because they need to balance the book.
But the thing is, we paid too much for those players, probably, and got relegated with them.
Yeah.
So they're not actually really worth that. It's just that we did pay that for them.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, it's an interesting question around Farke, isn't it? Yeah, but the idea of going up with him as well does feel like it's just a process we've got to go through. And the football's not as exciting as well. There's no two ways about it. It might be slightly more effective over the course of a season, give or take. But I mean, end up in a similar points total. It's just another way to approach the same problem, I suppose, isn't it? Whereas the Bielsa football was all kind of swashbuckling and exciting and, flying by the seat of your pants stuff. This is a bit more methodical, thought out, almost process driven. Yeah, the whole thing has just felt a little bit less emotional. It's felt more transactional and necessary because you've got the 49ers in the background. The stadium plans there waiting in the background. There's a lot of stability and structure there behind it, whereas kind of Radrizzani was, I suppose, riding a wave of the previous ownership as well. We've kind of, we went from one owner to the next, to the next, to the next, who bought a minority stake and then took over, bought a minority stake, took over. And it never seemed to be like this clean break of ownership, which we've kind of got now.
Well,
ish.
But
it's taken us up to a different level, I think. But the money that backs it is different. Is I suppose what I mean. The financial might behind it is that much greater.
I know what you mean. It feels like we've been climbing the ladder in terms of owners, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. So
what JFH were, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but it's far more robust thing, isn't it? So we're expected to kind of get up there now. And we've seen it and we've done it once and it's not a surprise and, it won't have the same emotion attached to it, which is why I think I've been able to let the playoff final defeat go quite easily.
Yeah, it's weird. I think that at points of this season, particularly early on, I'm trying to remember which point it would have been, but there were certainly bits within the first couple of months where you went, playoffs will be fine. We don't look like we're getting this together enough. If we can finish 5th, 6th, so be it. We'll kind of see what comes of that. But having got as far as we did, that all of a sudden felt absolutely terrible.
I was going to say it's weird how at the start of the season everyone's going, this is a 2-season project. Take 2 years. We'll probably get in the playoffs this season and that'll be a good year. And actually, I think Farke has sort of been a victim of his own high standards in that we chased down Leicester with a 17-point gap. However, we got 90 points. It's a very good season.
Yeah, Bielsa's first season it was 83 points.
Yeah,
and everyone loved it. Whereas this year's been 90 and everyone's a bit upset.
Yeah.
Come the end of it.
But it should have been 99 or 100, shouldn't it? That's the feeling.
It feels like the closer we got, the colder people got on Farke. The first half of the season when he's controlling the ball on the touchline, everyone's loving him and singing his name. And then the closer we got, the tension ramped up and everyone's it's boring.
The jeopardy wasn't as high then though, was it?
I think in the early part of the season, people liked the way he dealt with Nonto as well, for example, where he basically said, don't ever do that again, but I will let you back in. And he felt like he was dealing with a lot of off-field stuff. But then as the season shaped up and the squad was set, and then we were losing games, people were like, well, could you just try not losing some games?
You've done the good thing. Stop doing this and do that again.
At that point, you go, well, why is he only bringing on subs really late? You start picking at the other stuff, don't you? Whereas, you forget we didn't actually, as good as the home record was, we didn't win the first 3 home games that we had.
Right.
There were a lot of draws in the early part, which missed opportunities.
They all should have been wins, basically, anyway. We were a bit unlucky.
Well,
just a little bit loose, wasn't it?
We probably were. I mean, looking at the start of it, Cardiff, if we'd played them a month later, we'd have beaten them. Birmingham away, if we'd have played them when Wayne Rooney was in charge a month later, we'd have beaten them. Sheffield Wednesday at home should have won that. So there were points
Hull
left
away should have won that until Rodon was sent off.
There were points left all over the place, aren't there?
That first month of the season, it was when we were giving appearances to Cody Drammer, Leo Yelder, JB, Sonny Perkins, and you look at our player ratings and they're all the worst players of the season. So it's kind of no surprise, is it?
Right then, so who's it going to be? Who's your hero of the season? Now we've factored all that in and had a good chat about Farke's role in all this.
I would like to doff my cap to Farke, but I think Archie Gray is the right choice. Before we sell him as well.
I mean, he's played out of position as well, hasn't he? An awful lot of the season. He's played a lot, Archie Gray.
And
I'm happy with that.
Everything that he brought with it, Eddie Gray, singing, marching on together, stood there, proud, great uncle.
Archie Gray on the stats as well, like for the number of games played at his age for the club, all that sort of stuff that has done the rounds. Like he's been as much a part of this team as anyone, and he's been a child for part of the season.
And he's going back to what I said at the start about this section, he's captured the heart and the soul. So it's more than just being a good football player. It's being a good football player and just embodying so much more, I think. And that's what you love about football, isn't it? It's the players that you fall in love with and want to keep.
It's going to look bad, this, anyway. No, we're not going to sell him.
He's staying forever.
I genuinely think it would do him a lot of good to stay for another season.
I think he and his family will know that. Yeah.
Because what's he going to do if Liverpool sign him? He's going to play some League Cup games and come off the bench for 10 minutes.
Or get loaned out. Or, more to the point, if we have got enough Red Bull filthy taurine cash, and it means that FFP is far less of an issue, just keep him.
Just keep him. All right.
But Archie Gray.
Let's all agree to keep him then.
Hero of the season. Man and boy. Cheers, Archie. Right, we'll be back with Phil coming up. We're recording on Friday morning, so we'll get that out before the weekend. A little catch-up on where things are from a more professional standpoint. See what Phil's hearing on the Jungle Drums about the summer. We'll see you in a bit.
The Square Ball Podcast.